Blake, you know we got 10 kids in this family. And every one of them got their own story. But this week, one of those stories hit me hard. You know our cousin's granddaughter, Henrietta. Sweet girl. Something real painful happened to her. I ain't gonna go into details, but it shook her up bad. And now she's pregnant, and she told me she don't want to keep the baby. She said, Uncle Earl, it reminds me of what happened. And I feel sick inside. And you know how her grandma is, old school religious, talking her out of ending the pregnancy. So the girl came to me crying, saying she don't want this thing inside her. And I told her, baby, this is bigger than Uncle Earl. This is Uncle Blake territory. So I sent her your way.
I'm glad you reached out. And I'm glad you're coming with her today. It helps them feel seen, less alone.
Well, she asked me to come sit in the circle with her. And I know you got all that patient-doctor confidentiality stuff. But since she invited me, I figured it'd be all right.
It's absolutely all right. And honestly, Earl, and grateful. This is the first time you've ever joined one of my circles. I think it'll mean a lot to her. And that might help you understand what people in her situation go through.
Oh, I'm sure it will. And don't worry. I brought that dictionary you gave me because half the things you say go right over my head.
I'll try to keep it as down to earth as possible.
Thanks, little brother. Now listen, I ain't trying to tell her what to do. You know how we were raised. Old school folks didn't talk about trauma, or choices, or mental health. They just said have the baby and figure it out. But I'm looking at her, and she's hurting. And I don't want her suffering through 9 months of misery just to please everybody else.
And that's exactly why today's circle is important. Decisions like this are never simple. And never one size fits all. People choose adoption for many reasons: safety, stability, trauma, financial strain. None of those reasons make someone a bad parent. They make someone human.
See, that's why I need you. I say what everybody's thinking. You say what's factual between the two of us. Maybe we can help her breathe a little easier.
That's the goal.
Well, let's go on in there. And Blake, if I start crying, don't you say nothing. I'm still the big brother.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Blake. I'm glad you're here today. I see familiar faces, and I see a few new ones, as always. This is a confidential space. You're free to share as much or as little as you feel comfortable with. There's no judgment here, only support, honesty, and compassion. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that today's topic is emotionally heavy. We'll be talking about decisions surrounding pregnancy, trauma, adoption, and the complicated feelings that come with them. If at any point you need a break, you're welcome to step outside and return when you're ready. And I want to welcome my brother Earl, who's joining us today for the first time. Some of you may actually know him from his weekend YouTube and podcast series, A to Z Life Lessons. with Uncle Earl.
Oh wow. I've heard of him.
Yeah. I've listened to a few of those.
He's really good.
Well, thank y'all. I'm just here to listen and be moral support. I ain't gonna say much unless somebody needs me.
That's perfect. And I'm grateful you're here. Alright, let's begin if you feel ready. You can start by sharing your name and what brought you here today.
My name is Mariah, and my story is complicated. I didn't choose my pregnancy. It came from something violent, something that took away my sense of safety. When I found out, I didn't want to continue it. I was terrified. I was hurting. I wanted control over my own body again. But my family is very religious. They refused to take me anywhere for medical help. They told me ending the pregnancy was a sin. They told me I had to carry it. And I was young, scared, and trapped. I didn't have support. I didn't have options. I didn't have a voice. I became so desperate that I started harming my own health. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was in crisis. Someone in my family found out and told me what I was doing wouldn't end the pregnancy. It would only hurt the baby. That terrified me even more. So I stopped. I ran away twice. I tried to find someone who would help me get medical care behind my family's back. But every time, someone stepped in with their own beliefs, their own judgment, their own "we won't be part of that." I felt like my body wasn't mine anymore. Eventually, I found a maternity home. A place for girls who wanted to place their babies for adoption. They let me look through portfolios of families. And for the first time, I felt hope. I found a couple who seemed perfect, loving, stable, ready. I signed the papers. I thought, this is it. This is how I give my baby a better life. But then, the hormones hit, the bonding started. And I panicked. I backed out. After the baby was born, I looked at their face, and I saw the resemblance to the person who hurt me, and all the fear came back. I told my family I wanted to place the baby. They told me people in our culture don't do that. They said only certain people give their babies away. They shamed me. They made me feel like a monster for even thinking about it. So I ran away again. I found another maternity home, another family. They even let me spend a weekend with them. They were ready to love my child, ready to give them everything I couldn't. And again, when the weekend ended, I froze. I backed out. And they were devastated, angry, yelling, but legally, I still had the right to keep my baby. So I kept them. And I tried. I really tried. But I was alone, I was broke, I was traumatized, I was barely eating, I was going to food banks, I was doing whatever I could to keep my child fed and clean. I was drowning, I did whatever it took to get diapers and food for my baby. By any means necessary. And when I say any means necessary, I mean exactly that. Not because I was being fast, not because I wanted to, but because my baby needed food now, diapers now. I was using the only option I could see at the time. And I regret those decisions to this day, but I had no one, no help, no support. I started stealing food from grocery stores, praying I wouldn't get caught, just trying to survive. We ended up homeless, living at the YMCA. Someone called CPS, maybe a neighbor. Maybe the baby's father, I don't know, but CPS came and they saw how thin my child was. How thin I was. How unstable everything had become. And then the father, the man who hurt me, showed up in court with money, lawyers, stability, and I had nothing. The judge terminated my parental rights permanently. I lost my child, and I've been living with that pain ever since, and sometimes I think, if I had been allowed to place them for adoption when they were still an infant, before the bonding, before the shame, before the homelessness, maybe they would have had a better life, and maybe I wouldn't still be carrying this grief.
Mariah, thank you for saying that out loud. What you described isn't a moral failure, it's survival. When someone is alone, overwhelmed, and trying to keep a child alive, the brain goes into crisis mode. People make decisions they never imagined they'd have to make. And I want everyone in this circle to hear me clearly. Survival choices do not define your worth. No one here is judging you. Not a single person. You did what you could with what you had, and you kept your baby alive. That matters. What you just shared is not the story of a failure. It's the story of a young woman who was abandoned by every system that was supposed to protect her. You were a child carrying trauma, carrying a pregnancy you didn't choose, surrounded by people who gave you judgment instead of support. You were forced into decisions no one your age should ever have to make. And every time you tried to find a safe path, someone blocked it with their beliefs, their shame, their control. Nothing about your story is simple. Nothing about it is black and white. You were surviving trauma, poverty, isolation, and motherhood all at once. And when someone is drowning like that, the brain goes into crisis mode. People do whatever they can to keep their child alive. That isn't moral weakness. That's survival. And I want to say this clearly, for you and for everyone listening. You did not fail your child. You were failed by your family, by the community, by the systems that should have stepped in long before CPS ever did. And the grief you carry, it makes sense. Losing a child, especially under those circumstances, leaves a wound that doesn't just disappear. But the fact that you're here telling this story, trying to make meaning out of it, that shows strength most people will never understand.
Blake, can I ask this young lady something real quick?
Of course, Earl, go ahead.
Mariah, I hope I ain't overstepping, but I noticed you holding something close to your stomach. At first I thought maybe it was your purse, or maybe your kid's toy you grabbed on the way out the door. But now that I heard your story, I was wondering if that's a little baby doll you're holding.
Yeah, it is.
I ain't making fun of you. I just wanted to understand.
I was embarrassed to bring it in here. I kept it tucked under my sweater so nobody would see. People laugh at me for having it. They say I'm crazy. They say grown women shouldn't carry dolls. But this helps me. My therapist gave it to me. After I lost my child, my body didn't understand what happened. I was breastfeeding when they took him. My arms were used to holding him. My body was still expecting a baby. And every time I saw someone with a newborn, or smelled baby lotion, or heard a baby cry, I would break down.
This doll is weighted like a real baby. It smells like baby powder. It calms my body down. It stops the panic. It stops the crying spells. It gives my nervous system something to hold, so I don't fall apart in public. I know it's not real. I know it's just a doll, but my body doesn't know that. And this is the only thing that keeps me grounded.
Mariah, thank you for sharing that. And I want to say this clearly. There is absolutely nothing wrong with using a therapy baby doll. These dolls are a legitimate grounding tool used in trauma therapy, grief therapy, and attachment repair. They help regulate the nervous system when someone has experienced infant loss, traumatic separation, postpartum trauma, removal of parental rights or unresolved attachment wounds. When someone loses a baby, whether through miscarriage, adoption, CPS involvement, or custody loss, the body often continues to respond as if the baby is still there. Hormones don't shut off just because the situation changed. The nervous system doesn't forget overnight. A therapy doll gives the body something to hold so the mind can breathe. It reduces panic attacks. It reduces grief spikes. It helps people sleep. It helps them function. It's not delusion. It's not immaturity. It's not playing pretend. It's a trauma-informed coping tool. And the fact that you use one doesn't make you weak. It makes you self-aware. It means you're taking care of yourself in the only way your body can accept right now. There is no shame in needing comfort. There is no shame in needing grounding. And there is no shame in using a tool that helps you regulate after everything you've survived.
Before we continue, I want us to take a moment to ground ourselves. Stories like Mariah's can activate a lot. Memories, emotions, physical sensations. So let's pause together. Place your feet on the floor, feel the support beneath you. Rest your hands wherever they feel comfortable. You don't have to close your eyes, just soften your gaze. Take a slow breath in and let it out gently. Notice the chair holding you. Notice the air in the room. Notice that you are safe in this moment. If you're holding tension in your shoulders, let them drop. If your jaw is tight, unclench it. If your hands are gripping, loosen them. Now take one more breath. And when you're ready, we'll continue.
My name is Jay and I'm here because everybody in my family keeps asking me when I'm gonna give in grandbabies. My mama, my grandma, my aunties, every holiday, every phone call. When you gonna settle down? When you gonna make me a grandma? They don't understand why I don't want kids. They don't understand why I made the choices I made. They think I'm selfish. They think I'm cold. Some of them even say I must be gay because I'm not trying to get nobody pregnant. But the truth is, I'm scared. Not of kids. Not of responsibility. I'm scared of becoming him. The man who contributed DNA to my existence. That's all he ever was. A sperm donor. Not a dad. Not a protector. Not a provider. He was a violent, angry, unpredictable man. He hurt my mom. He hurt me. He hurt everybody in that house. I grew up watching him break things. Break people, break my mother's spirit. I watched her hide bruises with makeup. I watched her flinch when he walked into the room. I watched him drink himself into a monster. And I remember thinking, even as a kid, if this is what being a man is, I don't wanna. When I got older, I started noticing things in myself. The temper, the way my voice gets loud when I'm stressed, the way I shut down when I'm overwhelmed, the way I get scared of my own reactions. And I thought, what if that's him and me? What if something snaps one day? What if I hurt someone I love? And then my girlfriend, well, my fiance at the time, she got pregnant. And she came from the same kind of background. I did abuse, chaos, trauma. We were two broken kids trying to build a life together. When she told me she was pregnant, I froze, not because I didn't love her, not because I didn't care, but because I was terrified. And she was terrified too. We both looked at each other and said, we can't do this. Not like this. Not with what we come from. So, we made a decision. Together. We decided to place the baby for adoption. Not because we didn't love that child, but because we did. Because we wanted that baby to have stability, safety, a home without yelling, a home without fear, a home without two traumatized parents trying to figure out how to breathe. And after that, after the adoption, I knew I couldn't go through that again. I knew I couldn't risk bringing another child into the world only to pass down the same pain I grew up with. So, I made a permanent decision. I got a vasectomy. And I didn't tell nobody. Not my mama, not my grandma, not my fiance, nobody. Because I knew they'd try to talk me out of it. I didn't do it because I hate kids. I did it because I love them too much to risk hurting one. I did it because I know my limits. I did it because I'm breaking the cycle, even if nobody understands. And if my family wants to call me names for that, fine, let them. I'd rather be misunderstood than dangerous.
Jay, thank you for sharing that. What you just described is something many people carry silently. The fear of repeating the trauma they grew up with. And I want to reflect something back to you clearly. Your decision was not rooted in selfishness. It was rooted in awareness. You grew up in an environment where violence, instability, and fear were the norm. That kind of childhood doesn't just leave memories. It leaves imprints. It shapes the nervous system. It shapes how you interpret stress. It shapes how you see yourself in relationships. And when someone grows up in a home like that, it's common to internalize a fear that the cycle might repeat. Not because you want to hurt anyone, but because you've seen firsthand how trauma can echo through generations. You mentioned noticing things in yourself. Your voice getting louder under stress, shutting down when overwhelmed, feeling afraid of your own reactions. Those aren't signs that you're destined to become your father. They're signs that you're aware of your triggers. And awareness is the opposite of danger. When you and your fiancé became pregnant, you didn't run.
You didn't deny it. You didn't ignore it. You and she looked at your histories, your trauma, your emotional capacity, and you made a decision together, a decision rooted in protection, not avoidance. Placing a child for adoption is not abandonment. It is not failure. It is not weakness. It is a trauma-informed choice made by two people who wanted to break a cycle rather than repeat it. And your vasectomy, that was not an act of fear. It was an act of responsibility. It was you saying, I know my limits. I know my triggers. I know my history. And I refuse to let trauma pass through me into another generation. That is not cowardice. That is not avoidance. That is not weakness. That is boundary setting. That is self-knowledge. That is cycle breaking. Your family may not understand. They may project their expectations, their beliefs, their desires onto you. But none of them lived your childhood. None of them carry your memories. None of them feel your triggers in their body. You made a decision based on trauma, insight, and love, not fear. And that deserves respect, not judgment. Thank you for trusting us with your truth. You're not alone in this.
Thank you, Earl, truly. I appreciate your words. And I agree with you. All right. I see we have someone else who'd like to share. Yes, you. In the green shirt. Thank you for raising your hand. Please, go ahead, tell us your name and share whatever you feel comfortable sharing with the group.
My name is Talia, and my story is different from the others, but it carries its own kind of shame. I didn't come from abuse. I wasn't assaulted. I wasn't homeless. I wasn't struggling financially. I had a stable job, a supportive partner, and a family that was excited for the baby. But after I gave birth, something happened to me. Something I didn't expect. Something nobody warned me about. I didn't feel connected to my baby. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel love. I felt nothing. Or worse, fear. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't stop crying. I was terrified to be alone with my own child. I kept having thoughts that scared me, thoughts that didn't feel like mine, thoughts that made me feel like a monster. I told my family I needed help. They told me to pray. I told my partner I was scared. He told me I was overreacting. I told my doctor something was wrong. She said it was baby blues and it would pass. But it didn't pass. It got worse. I started feeling like I was disappearing. Like I wasn't safe in my own mind. Like my baby deserved a mother who wasn't drowning. One night I finally broke down and told a nurse at the ER what I was feeling. She took me seriously. She told me I wasn't crazy. I was experiencing postpartum depression, maybe even postpartum psychosis. She said it wasn't my fault. She said it was treatable. But by then, I was terrified of myself, terrified of failing my child, terrified of hurting them without meaning to. I loved my baby, but I didn't trust my own mind. So I made a decision nobody understood. I placed my baby for adoption, not because I didn't love them, but because I loved them enough to admit I wasn't well. I needed help, I needed treatment. And I didn't want my child growing up with a mother who was fighting her own brain every day. My family called me selfish. They said I abandoned my child. They said I should have pushed through. They said I should have prayed harder. They said I should have been stronger. But I wasn't weak, I was sick, and I got help. And I'm better now. But the stigma, the shame, the whispers, they follow me everywhere. I'm here because I want people to understand that postpartum mental health is real. And sometimes, placing a child for adoption isn't giving up. It's protecting them and protecting yourself.
Talia, thank you for sharing that. What you described is something many people experience, but very few feel safe enough to talk about. And I want to say this clearly for you and for everyone in this room. What you went through was not your fault. Postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis are real medical conditions. They are not character flaws. They are not signs of weakness. They are not failures of love. They are biological, hormonal, neurological responses to childbirth. And they can affect anyone, even people with stable homes, supportive partners, and planned pregnancies. You said you didn't feel connected to your baby, that you felt fear instead of joy, that you had thoughts that didn't feel like your own. Those experiences are incredibly common in postpartum mental health crisis. They don't mean you didn't love your child. They mean your brain was overwhelmed, your hormones were dysregulated, and your nervous system was in survival mode. And when you reached out for help, you were met with minimization. Pray about it. Push through. It's just baby blues. That response is part of the stigma. It leaves people suffering in silence. It leaves them terrified of being judged. It leaves them feeling like they're failing when they're actually in medical distress. The fact that you recognized you weren't well, the fact that you sought help, the fact that you made a decision to protect your child and yourself, that is not abandonment. That is not selfishness. That is not giving up. That is responsible parenting. Placing a child for adoption because of postpartum mental health is one of the most misunderstood decisions a parent can make. People assume it means you didn't care. But in reality, it often means you cared so deeply that you were willing to face judgment, stigma, and heartbreak to make sure your child had stability while you healed. And I want to emphasize something important. You did not fail your child. You did not abandon your child. You made a medically informed, trauma-informed, love-driven decision. You sought treatment, you got better, you survived something that many people don't even recognize in themselves, and you're here today, not hiding, not pretending, but telling the truth so others don't feel alone. That takes strength. That takes courage. And I'm grateful you trusted us with your story. We would like to share next. Yes, you in the back. Thank you for waiting. Please,
whenever you're ready.
My name is Henrietta. I'm Earl's niece. Well, technically my grandma is his cousin, but he's always been Uncle Earl to me. I wasn't gonna talk today. I was actually hoping nobody would notice me. I didn't want Uncle Earl to know why I'm here. I didn't want Uncle Blake to hear this either. I was embarrassed. I thought y'all would judge me. But then I heard Mariah's story, and something in me just broke open. Because everything she said, that's exactly why I'm here. I'm pregnant, and it wasn't consensual. I haven't told my family the truth, not the whole truth. They think it was a mistake, or that I was being fast, or that I'm just trying to hide the father's identity. But the truth is, I was assaulted, and I've been carrying that alone. And ever since I found out, my family has been pressuring me, telling me I better not embarrass them, telling me I better keep this baby, telling me that in our culture we don't give away our blood, telling me that adoption is shameful, that it makes me look weak, that it makes them look bad. But I don't wanna go through what Mariah went through. I don't wanna raise a child that came from violence. I don't wanna look at a face that reminds me of what happened. I don't wanna be pressured into suffering, just so my family can feel righteous. I'm not strong enough to do this alone. I'm not pretending I am. I'm not pretending I can bond with a baby that came from trauma. I'm not pretending I can push through the nightmares, the panic attacks, the shame. When you told your story, it felt like you were telling mine. And it made me realize I'm not crazy. I'm not evil. I'm not selfish. I'm just trying to protect myself and protect a baby who deserves a life that isn't built on my pain. Uncle Earl, I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I was scared you'd be disappointed. But I want to place this baby for adoption. I want to choose a family who can love them without the trauma attached. I want to heal. I want to breathe again. And I don't want anyone, not Mama, not Grandma, not the church, telling me I have to keep a baby just to make them feel better. I'm here because I needed to say it out loud. I'm choosing adoption. And I'm not ashamed anymore.
Baby girl, come here. First thing I need you to hear, and I mean hear it deep. You ain't got nothing to be ashamed of, not one thing. You didn't do nothing wrong. What happened to you was wrong. What you're carrying is heavy. And the fact that you're standing here telling the truth, that makes you stronger than half the folks who ever judged you. And let me tell you something else. Ain't nobody, not your mama, not your grandma, not the church, not the whole family tree, got the right to tell you what to do with your body or your future. You don't owe nobody a baby. You don't owe nobody a performance. You don't owe nobody a story that makes them feel comfortable. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself safety. And if adoption is what gives you that, then baby, you do it. And you do it with your head held high. I'm your uncle, I'm the oldest, I'm the loudest, I'm the one who's always running his mouth. But hear me now. I'm proud of you, I'm proud of your courage, I'm proud of your honesty. And I'm standing with you. Whatever you choose, I'm standing with you. You ain't alone, not anymore.
Thank you, Earl. Henrietta, I want you to take a slow breath with me. You did something incredibly brave just now. You let us see the part of you that's scared. The part that doesn't have all the answers yet. Most people hide that you didn't. And I want you to hear me clearly. Not as a doctor, but as your cousin. As someone who loves this family just as much as Earl does. Mariah's story is not your destiny. It's a reflection of what happens when someone is left without support, without choices, and without a voice. You are not standing in that same darkness. You have Uncle Earl. You have this circle. You have people who will walk with you through every step, not push you into silence or shame. And the fact that you're asking these questions now, before you're overwhelmed, before you're drowning, tells me you're already thinking with clarity and care that matters. That's protective. That's love. Your fear makes sense. Your confusion makes sense. Your desire to avoid suffering makes sense. None of those feelings mean you're weak or unprepared. They mean you're human. And I want you to know something else. You don't have to figure everything out today. You don't have to make a lifelong decision in a moment of panic. You don't have to carry this alone. So let's slow everything down. Let's take this one breath at a time. One truth at a time. One option at a time. You are not destined to repeat anyone's story. You're allowed to write your own.
Thank you to every single person who shared today. What we witnessed in this room wasn't weakness. It wasn't shame. It wasn't failure. It was truth. It was courage. It was people choosing honesty over silence, healing over hiding, and self-awareness over stigma. Every story we heard today had a different shape, different circumstances, different pain, different decisions, but they all had one thing in common. People trying to protect themselves and the children connected to them. Adoption is not abandonment. Cycle breaking is not fear. Postpartum mental health is not weakness. And choosing your own safety is not selfish. Each of you made decisions based on trauma, context, emotional capacity, and love, not on shame or pressure. And that matters. That deserves respect. As we close today, I want you to remember this. You are allowed to choose the path that keeps you safe.
You are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe. You are allowed to heal in your own time and your own way without apologizing for it. Thank you for your honesty, thank you for your courage, and thank you for trusting this space. Before we leave, let's take a moment to ground ourselves. You've carried a lot today. Let's help your body settle. Place your feet on the floor, feel the support beneath you. Let your hands rest wherever they feel comfortable. Take a slow breath in and let it out gently. Notice the chair holding you. Notice the air in the room. Notice that you are safe in this moment. If your jaw is tight, loosen it. If your shoulders are raised, let them fall. If your hands are clenched, soften them. Take one more slow breath and let it go. You're grounded. You're safe. Thank you all for being here today.
As everyone files out of the classroom, Henrietta lingers behind. She walks up to Uncle Earl, eyes still red, but lighter than before, and wraps her arms around him. Earl holds her tight, nodding against her shoulder. No words needed, she leaves with a small smile. Earl watches her go, proud in that quiet, protective way only he can be. Across the room, Blake starts stacking chairs, resetting the space with that calm, methodical rhythm he always has after a heavy session. Earl steps in beside him, grabbing a few chairs of his own.
So where are we going for lunch this time? And I want real food. Not that knockoff stuff you tried to feed me last week.
Oh, come on, Earl. Bonnie told me you liked the Momo steak.
Liked it. Boy, that wasn't steak. That was a cow's cousin trying to pretend.
Uh-huh. You cleaned your whole plate.
That's 'cause I was hungry. Don't get it twisted.
And just like that, the room shifts from heavy to hopeful. Two brothers, two different worlds. One shared mission, helping people heal. One story at a time.
We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe. We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way, without apologizing for it.
We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe. We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way, without apologizing for it. We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe. We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way, without apologizing for it. We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe. We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way, without apologizing for it. We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe.
We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way. We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way. We are apologizing for it.
We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe. We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way, without apologizing for it. We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe.
We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way. We are allowed to heal in our
We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe. We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way, without apologizing for it. We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe. We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way, without apologizing for it. We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe. We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way. We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way, without apologizing for it. We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe. We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way, without apologizing for it. We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe. We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way, without apologizing for it. We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe. We are allowed to heal in our own time, in our own way, without apologizing for it. We are allowed to choose the path that keeps a child safe.